This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
And welcome to the program. I'm Roby Brock. Joining me now, John Brummett, columnist with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. You are looking spry today, Mr. Brummett. You look like you've had a great weekend.
Well, you had a little advanced intelligence. We were just talking before we started, and I was just going on about how well I was doing. I'm enjoying my pickleball, enjoying some yard work in the shade from the heat, and it's just feeling good. So maybe I'll be more pleasant than usual today.
Oh,
maybe not. I don't know.
right.
I'm not promising anything, but it's good to talk to you.
Yes, good to talk to you. I would like to hear some pleasant things about the late Justice on the Arkansas Supreme Court, Robin Wynne. He was from a political dynasty family and certainly super accomplished in everything that he did. Quite a storied career there and a little bit under the radar, I think, in terms of people recognizing that. Your thoughts on Justice Robin Wynne?
First time I remember meeting him, which would mean I don't remember meeting him when he was younger in the legislature briefly, was after he was a member of the State Court of Appeals, and he was brought in to sub in our tennis league one night, and he happened to be subbing on a team opposite me, and I noticed he was limping, bad knees of an old athlete, but that he was an intense competitor, very intense, to the point that during a break he looked at me and he said, "You bring out the worst in me," or something about me. That he said, I'm very competitive, but something's going on with me, something about you. And I've had that effect on people, but I think they just don't like me or they want to beat me. But he was naturally very competitive, a very good, versatile athlete, had played football at Harvard. And then as we got to know each other, as he subbed more and more, he related one night, sort of an intimate moment that you don't know. I don't think you can understand, John, just what it's like to be the youngest son, the youngest brother in the Wynne family, because it's expected. You go to Harvard, you stand out at Harvard, you play football at Harvard, you amount to something. And while he felt the pressure of that, he withstood the pressure and he succeeded. He achieved greatly as a lawyer, as a legislator, as a judge, and even went to divinity school for a while and had that part of his background. Yeah, under the radar. We had a little difference of opinion along the way about his run for the Supreme Court, and some dark money group, for some reason, decided to attack his opponent. I wanted him to disavow that. He just kept quiet about it, but I got over that. It's not common for a politician to disavow what somebody else says about his opponent, other than to say, "I didn't do it, they did it, and I don't know why they're doing it." But a good man, and a probably the single most progressive, using that word generally, justice on the Supreme Court, and he will be missed as a result.
All right. Thank you for sharing those thoughts. It's good to always get the personal stories in there, and you certainly have some with him. Let's talk about Judge Jay Moody. Federal Judge Jay Moody's ruling this past week on the transgender medical care ban that the state of Arkansas passed back in 2021. It was overturned, ruled unconstitutional by the 14th Amendment and the First Amendment, according to Judge Moody. It will be appealed to the court. The Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals. What's your thoughts on the outcome of that ruling? Expected, not expected? I think I know where you stand on the politics of it, but just asking you to reason through it.
Well, I really had forgotten the thing was under litigation. There was a temporary restraining order that kept the law from taking effect, which Judge Moody had issued earlier. This thing proceeded to trial last October. Meantime, the state legislature has met and done other restrictive things about medical treatments for trans youth, including this thing that says they can sue their medical professionals for many years into their adulthood, which is designed to do the same thing this law did. So it was a little bit off my radar. But then when it was issued, it got a lot of national attention because Arkansas was the first state to issue this particular breadth of ban. And it's the first time such a law, which has now been imitated in other states, was overturned, not by a TRO, but permanently, or as a final ruling that overturns the law. And it was getting a lot of national headlines, so I gave it more attention, which it was due because Moody made a very logical ruling based on the evidence that you've got parents with a troubled child whom they take to counseling, and a counselor or psychiatrist makes a diagnosis. You involve the pediatricians, and then they design treatment, which is what happens medically with doctor and parental responsibility across the board, except in this one case, if the youth is uncertain about gender and going through some trouble. Our state legislature has said on that, the doctors aren't in charge, the parents aren't in charge, we are. He said that's to single that out as a medical treatment that can't be allowed according to our law, denies due process to the parents, to the children, and equal protection, and also denies First Amendment rights to doctors because the law also says you can't refer them to someone in another state. And it was I found a solid argument, and he based it on rather meticulous findings that there are, in fact, psychological woes besetting teenagers largely about gender, and in many cases, lives have been improved by the treatment that doctors suggest or recommend and parents choose. So I think it's a solid ruling. The Eighth Circuit had previously stopped the ruling on a temporary basis, and I would personally expect them to do so again based on the solid nature of this ruling. Most of the opposition is less legal than religious, cultural, and emotional, seems to me, even to the extent of what the governor and others are saying, that this is a gender mutilation we must protect our children from, which is vast overstatement and pointlessly incendiary rhetoric in terms of the puberty blockers and hormones that are the extent of the treatment beyond counseling that are provided typically in Arkansas.
Yeah.
So that's how I saw that.
I sat down this past week on the program with John DePippa, who is the Dean Emeritus of the Bowen School of Law, and asked him for some just thoughts on where this thing goes from here. And he actually had some pretty insightful thoughts in terms of Arkansas is the first state law to be tested in the federal court. So there will be other states that have some rulings through federal court challenges on this. And it just depends on if there's some split decisions as to whether or not this goes all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. So,
well, that's the thing I meant to conclude with. The Eighth Circuit is not certain. I'm thinking that they would, but either way that they rule, this would be like Mississippi on abortion. Arkansas is out front. Should it get to a major consideration by the Supremes, this case would seem to be it. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to an international development over the weekend that pretty much just lasted the day of Saturday for us. And it was kind of surprising, a little bit stunning to watch it, what happened in Russia over the weekend, where you've got basically the militia-led group, the Wagner group that has done a lot of Putin's work in Ukraine and other parts of the world. There's a challenge to Vladimir Putin, and then somehow by the end of the day on Saturday, they worked out a compromise where the leader of the Wagner group is going to go to Belarus and not face any charges. I would argue he might have someone tasting his food on a regular basis.
Be a good idea, yeah.
What's your thought on that whole development? Where do you think it leaves things today in terms of Vladimir Putin, and put that in the context of national Republicans flexing their muscle and talking about what a strong man Vladimir Putin has been over the years?
Well, to begin, I'll quote the American Secretary of State, suddenly went blank, Blinken, Anthony Blinken. On shows this morning, he was asked a lot of good questions, and his main answer was, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know exactly what this means. I don't know exactly why it happened. I don't know exactly what's going to happen now. Reminds me of that cliche, but that great Churchill quote that I'll probably blow Russia is a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma. Russia is, and this is very, very strange. The prevailing view of what we know is this ain't good for Putin. He lost serious control, or was revealed as having lost serious control. He appears to have blinked at least as much as the insurgents charging on Moscow by saying, okay, you can start a revolution against me, and just go to Belarus and we'll leave you alone. We'll see if that's so. Nobody's sure. And the soldier and the mercenaries themselves going to be spared prosecution. You know, we had a few insurgents January 6th, and a lot of them are in jail because the rule of law prevailed. That's not in effect here. Putin looks weak, and the general America and Ukrainian rallying point is, this is good. This is good for the main thing we need to keep our focus on, which is that the civilized world banding together to support Ukraine to stop the China-funded Russian aggression. And anything that shows that Putin is losing charge is good. So let's refocus, redouble, and help Ukraine win this war, which seems kind of like a possibility, or at least have it end favorably. But in terms of, is this guy, what's his name, Prigozhin, really safe? Are there going to be repercussions for these mercenaries? Don't they need them? A lot of them are prisoners that they're recruited by this private security firm. Are they going to go back and fight? And is Putin, how precarious is Putin's condition? But then this, an unstable Russia is, now a Putin-led Russia is a big, big problem. An unstable Russia is an equal problem, conceivably, depending on what comes after, or what happens as he is. So this has got the world in sort of a mixed emotions. Boy, we're glad to see this trouble for Putin, but is this good trouble? This guy leading this mercenary group may be one guy who's a bigger thug than Putin, if that's possible. What's going on here? And what happens? So the rhetoric is, we don't know, we're monitoring, but let's really get in there now and work even harder to help Ukraine. That seems to be the uncertain resolve at the present time.
And I would point out too, I mean, one of the reasons it's as dangerous as it is, this uncertainty, is Russia does have a nuclear weapons arsenal, and that is not something you want in an unstable person's.
No, you don't. Unstable person or an unstable society. Yeah. Okay.
All right. He's John Brummett, columnist with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. We're a little bit all over the place today, but appreciate you lassoing it all in and making some sense.
Roby, I hope I was pleasant enough for you today. I felt good, and I still do, even after talking about some of these things in the world. All right?
Take care.
Bye-bye.